it is very likely that Bun is porting its complete Zig code into Rust, and it's going to ship that soon. And this whole thing has been done by LLMs, which basically makes it an LLM based fork to a different code base, to a different language. And I have some thoughts about it. So Jared has tweeted that 99.8% of Bun's pre-existing test suite passes on Linux x64 glibc in the Rust rewrite. And the two most important keywords in this tweet, if you don't understand rest of the stuff, is Rust rewrite. See, Bun as a runtime obviously is in the business of executing JavaScript, but it has to be built through some language, right? Some programming language, and that has been so far majorly Zig. If you don't know Zig or haven't used it before, you can check out their website, which gives you a little bit of idea about how the syntax looks and feels like. It has a bunch of interesting features like this com time. And this language is indeed robust, optimal, and reusable for building reusable software. In fact, Zig is actually a relatively newer programming language. It has only been 10 years. It was released roughly in 2016 for the first time. And 10 years is not like a lot of time in programming languages, right? If you look at languages like C, C++, they are there for a much longer time. There are some more interesting applications which are written in Zig, which is Z, for example, that IDE, if you have seen. Tiger, Beetle, I think this is also a database that is written in Zig. And now what Bun has said is that, hey guys, we are gonna get rid of Zig and we're gonna move to a new friend, which is gonna be Rust. And he goes on to say it's basically the same code base, except now we can have the compiler enforce the lifetime of types and we get destructors when we want them. And the ugly part looks uglier, which encourages refactoring. Then he goes on to say, I'm so tired of worrying about and spending lots of time fixing memory leaks and crashes and stability issues, which is also one of my complaints with Bun. I will get to that point. It would be so nice if the language provided more powerful tools for preventing these things. There will be a blog post about this, on what this means for Bun, benchmarks, memory usage, everything, and also the literal process of doing this. This is almost 1 million lines of code rewrite. The code truly works, passing the test suite on Linux and soon on other platforms. E2E, I started working on this 6 days ago, which is less than a week. So in less than 7 days, he was able to port a code base of 1 million lines of code from Zig to Rust that passes 99.8% of the test suite, and it could possibly be live as a production release very soon, which is basically unheard of, right? These sort of refactors take a lot of time. If you look at, I don't know if you have seen, but if you look at TypeScript, which is going on, this refactor has been going on for some months, right? This is getting rewritten in Go, if I'm not wrong, if I'm remembering correctly, from JavaScript, right? Just for the speed reason. And this has been going on for at least 6 to 8 months, if I'm not wrong. And if somebody is able to pull off this rewrite in less than 6-7 days, that just tells a lot about the industry and the LLMs and how productive these machines are. But there are some interesting parts that we have to discuss in order to understand this, and then I'll also get to some of my complaints on Bun. So before you understand like what's going on the memory part, like why Rust is better for the memory safety sort of things and why Zig is not, let me give you a couple of examples. Look at this example in Rust. This is a very simple example of you creating a string, first of all, in S variable, and then you create a new variable R and you borrow S. So I don't want to teach you Rust right now, but this symbol that is there, this AND symbol that you see over here, this is used to borrow a variable. And borrowing basically just means that you are taking a look at what it is without actually getting the ownership of that. So this hello string still belongs to this S variable, but R has borrowed to check what S is in a way. Now what you do in the next line is interesting because you drop this S variable, which basically destroys this variable, right? So it just destroys the variable and frees up this value, this memory, whatever this was, right? This is string right now, but this could be anything. Now, typically in a language like C or C++, if you have heard about pointers, if you have read about pointers, it's very easy to create a program which can just point to arbitrary memory, which is either uninitialized or it has been freed up. In case of Rust, this specifically is not allowed at compile time, right? In other languages, obviously that will also probably have like a crashing behavior at runtime, or you would have some undefined behavior. But in case of Rust specifically, you would get a compile error over here that S was dropped already, and R, because it is borrowing from S, is not allowed to, you're not allowed to use R anymore. On the other hand, if you take a look at the Zig code now, which is basically the same thing, you can technically just free the buffer that you have over here that you allocated earlier, and you can still use it, right? So you can still call buffer of 0 to get a value. Now this program over here will compile fine, but this would have undefined behavior at runtime. If you compile this in release fast mode, it would actually have an undefined behavior just like you would have in C, right? Like I told you about the C and the way C works, right? Where you can just point to arbitrary memory and you can just basically do whatever you want. Rust makes it difficult for you to make mistakes, and that is the USP that Bun and Jared is focusing on. This is also a reason of a lot of crashes. I mean, not this specific example, but generally the concept that we call as use after free memory. If you Google this term, you will actually find a lot of vulnerabilities and bugs which are caused because of this class of vulnerability and bug, basically, where you use something after you have freed up that variable, that memory. Now, Bun version 1.3.14 has been released, which Jared is saying apparently is going to be the last release, which is under Zig, right? So it has a bunch of features, functionality, bug fixes, all of that. But this is going to be, if things go right, the last release that is built on top of Zig. Now, this is all fun and game, but I am actually not 100% sure if this is the right move, and hear me out. Now, there is no doubt that Bun is an incredible piece of software, and it's actually really good in terms of the direction that it has given the JavaScript ecosystem and the web ecosystem by focusing more on speed, features, a single binary doing a bunch of new things. But look at Bun. Look at the GitHub repository of Bun. We have over 5,000 open issues and over 12,000 closed ones. And if you go to, for example, let's say I filter down by total comments, right? Which is like the highest number of comments. We have the Bun roadmap, Bun test, monorepo support, and then on number 4, which is almost like more than a year old issue, moving from node to Bun spikes container CPU and memory usage until it crashes, which is open for a year, right? Then we have some a bunch of feature requests again. Then if you go down, you're going to see Bun install fails on Windows, operation not permitted, which is again like a popular one. We have 3.6 time memory usage over node while running Nest.js application, and a bunch of things which are like with the most comments. But let's actually look at something like segfault. Now we have about 119 open issues, and even in these 119, let's just go to created on, and I'm going to sort this by oldest. So we have segfault issues, and if we sort them by oldest, there are issues which are almost 3 years old now inside Bun repository, right? And all of these are like segfaulting even right now. I don't know, like most of them might be fixed, but you can see like a lot of these issues are actually existing inside Bun right now. Now, segfault is a category of issues that I am not particularly a huge fan of, and I have faced this myself with Bun when we used it back in the day with our own production company, own startup, and we quickly just got back to Node.js after seeing a bunch of these issues. Segfault basically is a way of saying by your operating system that, hey, program, whatever you are, your OS says to your program, screw you, you are trying to access a memory that does not belong to you, right? So this is basically just what segfault is, that your operating system comes into play because your program is trying to access some memory that is not your program's memory. Now, why this happens? Because of this specific reason. This is one of the reasons, right, that I just showed you over here, where you free up some memory, it gets freed up, it goes back to operating system, but you have a dangling pointer or something which is still pointing to that memory, and you somehow mistakenly access that, and that triggers a segfault on OS. Now, because Rust basically does not allow you to mess up with memory like this, like Zig allows or a lot of other languages allow, you can't get a lot of these typically common segfaults in Rust. So that is actually a huge win for Bun because of the segfaults. And I do believe that the amount of segfaults that Bun generally gets in production would actually go down a lot. With that being said, segfaults are not the only issue with Bun. That is just the one that I have also faced personally. And I know like really well that this used to happen a lot with Bun, at least in our workflows. But there are a lot of other things that you can still introduce as bugs inside Rust also, logical bugs. For example, if your logic is fundamentally wrong, you can have any language, it will not help you with logic. Rust also allows you to have unsafe code. Unsafe code is basically a block of code in Rust, which simply speaking just removes some of the guardrails that Rust puts in place. So for example, you can work with pointers in specific ways if you are writing an unsafe code, which your compiler would not guarantee that it is safe to work with, right? Now, what actually troubles me with this rewrite are a couple of things. First of all, Bun says that 99.8% of JavaScript and TypeScript tests that they pass on Linux. First of all, not even on like all the operating systems. On Linux, 99.8% of test cases pass. Where are the 0.2% of test cases, and why are they failing in the first place if it's like a simple, rewrite file by file or whatever done by a large language model? First of all, that is my question. And these 0.2% of test cases, are they failing because of logic mistakes that Bun has made, this LLM has made in order to transfer the code from Zig to Rust? Second of all, there are a lot of other bugs as well in Bun, which are not reported as issues, right? A lot of issues exist, over 5,000 of them are there, but there are a lot of things that Bun does not know. And this goes into the territory of, something that I like to explain with a Venn diagram. So this is sort of, things sort of that. Then there are things that you don't know. Actually, this I'm drawing it wrong, right? This should also be a circle or a square or whatever. Things you know that you don't know. And then there's a whole, the big universe of every single thing, things that you don't know, right? So Bun over here, the issues that are open are some of the things that Bun knows that are there. Then there are some memory issues or memory things that Bun knows that they don't really know where they are. And then there's a whole class of new bugs and system issues that's going to happen the moment this Rust rewrite is shipped for the very first time, which nobody knows like what's going to happen in that specific case, right? Because Bun as a JavaScript runtime is running in a lot of environments where telemetry is disabled. Things are just crashing. There is no feedback loop in order to complete that. And this software historically has not been super stable for production use cases, right? And doing a big rewrite like this in order to improve something which you anyway don't really know about what's causing that, right? Let's be honest. There is no clean way to know like what's exactly going on with every single seg fault. Otherwise, the team at Bun would automatically fix that, right? So the core problem is that we are over here, considering we as Bun's team, we are trying to fix a class of memory issues, memory bugs, whatever, seg faults, dangling pointers, memory corruption, whatever is happening, by doing a rewrite in a language that can possibly help you with that. Yes, that is true. But there is some unknowns that will come with that specific language. Rust is not magic. It's not God's written language where every single program that you create is bug-free, error-free, logic, no logical bugs are there. And there are a lot of them in Bun, right? So Bun is going to enter into an unknown, a new sort of territory where there would be bugs that you don't even know could possibly exist. And that is why it is a little bit scary for this rewrite to happen. I'm not saying that I'm not excited about this. This is actually a good thing. Rust is a much better language, like Jared said, for memory bugs and for just having a disciplined way of writing a runtime like Bun. But I am pretty sure that this is going to create more problems, at least in the short term, for people who are using Bun aggressively in production, because they will suddenly see a class of bugs which was not there before. And these are like completely new kind of bugs. I am personally a fan of Bun. I am, trust me, when I say this, I am a fan of Bun, but I would not use Bun in production. That is 100% true, and I would definitely not use it in production looking at how the things are going on right now. And when I say production, I mean systems. The backend, for example, our company doing like 1,000, 2,000 RPS on a system which is running through Bun as a runtime. It's fine if you're using it as a package manager. It's fine if you're invoking like 2, 3, 4 second scripts with it, which are running in your CI, which is okay even if it's seg faults. So what? You can just restart the action. It's not fine. I'm not gonna give my 2,000 requests per second backend running on Bun, which is performance sensitive. It's mission critical. If it crashes, yes, there are systems and procedures to bring back the server up, but I mean, I can run it with the TSX directly, just not using the features that Bun is providing right now with S3 API and images and all of that, because I can ask my large language model to create those things inside my code base and I can review those things, right? Why trade the stability of Node, which has been there for many, many years and which is historically quite stable, which you can combine with a platform like TSX, or even, TSX is great for local. For production, I just recommend doing an ES build and just directly running with Node, right? Just try to remove as much complexity and middle players as you possibly can. So this is a setup that I really recommend. If some of you wanted some help or some tips, use this for development. Just run your TypeScript directly with TSX and use the ES build plus Node combination. This one over here is the killer production thing. Super stable, and this will only crash if you are doing something wrong in your program, right? At least that has been my experience so far. So that's all for this video. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna see you in the next video very soon. If you're still watching, make sure you leave a comment, "I watched till the end" below to tell me that you were still here, and let me know what do you think about the video.